Have you ever felt like you're barely noticed in your relationships until you finally pulled away? Well, that's not a coincidence. That's actually just typical human behavior. Because when you go ghost and step back, suddenly their brain experiences a kind of withdrawal, a dopamine drop that jolts their system awake. This absence reactivates their reward pathways, making your presence feel scarce and valuable again. See, when you're always available, your presence becomes predictable, and the brain is wired to ignore what it thinks will always be there. Kind of like the hum coming from your refrigerator. It simply stops noticing it. But when you go ghost, all of a sudden, people start paying attention again. Because absence creates value. Hey friend, I'm Christy, board certified nurse practitioner, health coach, and trauma survivor. Welcome to Trauma Free, where I help you change your mind and your life just like I did. In today's video, we're breaking down the science behind why disappearing strategically isn't manipulation, but a powerful form of self-respect. And I'll also give you practical strategies to reclaim your presence without feeling guilty or any games. Let's start with a psychological truth. What's rare feels valuable. This is called the Scarcity Principle, and it's hardwired into the human brain. Research shows that when something becomes less available, we perceive it as more desirable, even if nothing else about it has changed. Because scarcity triggers our brain's reward system, and this even applies to relationships. So when you suddenly become less available by sending less texts and fewer appearances, there are dopamine spikes, which is the same neural circuitry activated by gambling or scrolling social media. Your limited access, along with the unpredictability of what's to come, fuels their craving and makes them want more. Believe it or not, the nucleus accumbens, your brain's pleasure center, lights up strongest when a reward is inconsistent. So this is why people stick around in toxic relationships, where 80% of the time the other person is cold, and the other 20% of the time they love bomb you, because your brain obsesses over the intermittent highs and not the consistent lows. This is called variable reinforcement. And it's the same reasoning as to why slot machines are so addictive. But here's where it gets deeper. The mere exposure effect tells us that repeated exposure to a stimulus increases familiarity, but only up to a point. Because after that, your presence becomes background noise. So the brain filters you out like wallpaper that we rarely even notice. I call this the wallpaper effect. You're there, but not seen. But when you pull back, something happens. Their brain experiences cognitive dissonance, a psychological discomfort that arises when their actions and beliefs don't align. So to resolve this discomfort, their mind upgrades your value, and oftentimes without them even realizing it. Suddenly, your absence has more emotional weight than your presence ever did before, because your silence becomes louder than your words ever were. Let's talk about how being too available doesn't make people love you more. It actually makes them value you less. And here's why. When you're always there, responding right away, showing up no matter what, you become like the hum of a refrigerator. Constant, dependable, and completely unnoticed. This is called habituation. The brain is designed to tune out what doesn't change. So in other words, what's consistent becomes invisible. And studies on sensory adaptation show that even emotionally positive stimuli, like affection or praise, fade into the background if repeated too often and without any contrast. And for many of us, especially those who've been conditioned by trauma or people-pleasing, try to earn love through always being around. But surprisingly, always being available sends a signal of being low value. Also, In social dynamics, availability is interpreted through the lens of social proof and perceived scarcity. So when you're always free and always accessible, their subconscious makes the decision that if they're always available, your time must not be valuable, even if that's completely false. And research shows that people attribute more value to individuals perceived as in demand or selectively available. And what about when you help people constantly? When you're the one who listens and fixes, their brains experiences what's called emotional debt. And unfortunately, that doesn't always turn into gratitude. In fact, it often turns into avoidance because they end up feeling guilty that they owe you, which makes them feel uncomfortable. And the brain does not like discomfort, so they pull back to escape that feeling. They don't thank you, they disappear. The closer you are, the more people forget they can lose you. Because when there's no fear of loss, there's no motivation to respect you. Let's talk about why being silent and removing yourself hit way harder than confrontation. The first reason is due to the Zeigarnik Effect, which means the brain fixates on what's unresolved. When you leave a conversation or a relationship without closure, the other person's mind begins to replay it, and they wonder what went wrong, what they missed, and if they should have treated you differently. That emotional confusion creates what's known as cognitive tension. And the only way the brain knows how to resolve it is to assign new value to what was lost. This is why disappearing can have more impact than defending yourself. Secondly, because of the default mode network, or DMN. When you're around all the time, people stay in reactive mode. But when you're absent, this switches on their DMN. This part of the brain activates when we're at rest, daydreaming, driving, and laying in bed. And its job is self-reflection, to make meaning of things, and memory recall. So that's when they start remembering your presence, the way you made them feel better, and the subtle things that they never noticed when you were always available. This is when people often romanticize, idealize, or reassign value to your presence, because your absence creates space for them to see what they couldn't. Lastly, when you set a boundary or withdraw entirely, mirror neurons fire in their brain, which are responsible for empathy, imitation, and internalizing others' emotional states. So when you silently withdraw with your dignity and not drama, you show them that you have self-respect, and their subconscious picks this up too. So they either rise to meet your standard or they exit, proving your silence was the answer all along. If you've ever felt unseen or disrespected, you're not tripping. Your brain just hasn't been taught the science of how to protect your value. The truth is, respect isn't something you demand. It's something your presence or absence teaches people. And now, I'll provide you with the tools to reshape how you perceive yourself and how others will too. Number 1, disappear from time to time. Take a weekend offline. Say no to the invite. Delay the reply. Because according to the scarcity principle, humans assign more value to what feels limited. When you're always accessible, you become background noise. But brief absences re-trigger awareness, and that's when their dopamine system takes notice. Their brain starts to register you like a favorite song that they rarely hear, and not the elevator music that fades into the background. Number 2, let your absence speak for you. Stop explaining every no. Stop defending your rest. Let your silence do what over-talking never could. Because neuroscience shows that ambiguity, which appears to the other person as being unclear or confusing, causes their brain to have to project their own meaning. So when you offer fewer explanations, people have to evaluate their own behavior rather than fixate on your reasoning. Basically, mystery builds respect and over explaining doesn't. Number 3, invest in yourself. Every time you invest in your healing, learning, or just resting, not only are you getting better, you're becoming less accessible to disrespect. And studies on neuroplasticity show that building confidence through daily practices like goal setting, movement, or affirming your worth reshapes your prefrontal cortex, the decision making part of your brain. And it's important to mention that confidence isn't about being loud and arrogant. It's actually electromagnetic because it's been proven that your biofield becomes more coherent when you have self-respect and are able to self-regulate. And other people notice this too. Number 4, protect your boundaries. Exit before the burnout. Say goodbye before the resentment. Just walk away while you still have your peace. Because your last impression imprints deeply on their brain. So when you leave calmly and not out of anger, they reflect even harder and it confuses their nervous system, creating discomfort and keeps you mentally alive in their mind. Thanks to the Zeigarnik Effect, their DMN will have to fill in the blanks from your absence. And guess what? They'll probably fill those blanks with a greater sense of respect for you. Because when you stop showing up to be taken for granted, people finally realize they never should have in the first place. Respect isn't earned by constant presence. It's enforced by your absence. So go ghost from time to time. Not out of spite, but to care for yourself and to protect your energy and self-worth. If your silence doesn't wake them up, they were never listening to you in the first place. So until next time, stay trauma-free and take care.